vile coward.
We'll be right back after these short messages. Russell King Jr. was born on August 12, 1994, in Clarendon Township, and had been a lifelong resident of Chardon, Ohio. He enjoyed his job at Amberwood Kennels, where he would take care of the dogs at the kennels and help around on the property. If there was a job to be done, Russell was the person to take care of it. He also worked part-time at Pinnacle Woods and enjoyed his job there. Russell was an avid outdoorsman and enjoyed anything and everything you could do outside: hunting, fishing, camping, and canoeing, just to name a few. Just like Danny, Russell was someone who loved being around his family. Russell's father, referenced in the beginning of this episode, passed away peacefully in his sleep on the 2-year anniversary of his son's death. His friends and family say that he died from a broken heart and are at peace knowing that he is again with his son.
As you can see, to us, the defendant no longer has a name. To us, he is the shooter who stole my loving brother Russell away from us. He's the evil, disgusting animal that took a gun into a place that is supposed to be safe and murdered 3 amazing, handsome, funny, smart boys who were loved by so many people. He's the monster that injured 3 others and hurt thousands more with his actions. Your Honor, the defendant, the shooter, took so much away from so many people. I strongly feel that he deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison without any option of parole. No one should be able to take the lives of 3 young men who were doing what they were supposed to and get a second chance. Also, I would like to mention one last thing. A few weeks prior to the shooting, Russell told one of his close friends that he wanted to start hanging out with the shooter again. He told his friend that they used to be friends and grew apart over the years. I hope that is something the shooter will never forget. He wanted to be his friend. He felt sorry for him. Thank you.
Demetrius Hewlin was born on March 8, 1995, and had lived in Chardon for 10 years prior to the murder. He was only 16 years old when he was killed. Demetrius, who simply went by D, was always late for school. His mother said that he had never been a morning person, and he always had trouble getting to school on time. One of the few days that D was not only on time, but early. D had a brother and a sister, and was interested in healthy living and bodybuilding. He went to the weight room at school at least 5 times a week, and enjoyed working out while also spending time with his friends. He was trying hard to make it onto the school's football team. When he wasn't working out, D was playing video games, reading, or listening to music. He also donated his time to the Habitat for Humanity resale shop.
I will miss Demetrius, and I have enough memories to last me a lifetime. That child stole my baby's life, and he should never be able to do this to anyone ever again. Thank you.
Dee's mom reported that they had donated Dee's organs. One of his organs saved a child that was just days away from his death had they not received a transplant.
It's really hard to figure out how I should feel about all this when they were all my friends.
Oliver was born on September 9th, 1994, and was 17 years old when he committed the shooting. He was a sophomore at Lake Academy, along with about 55 other students. Oliver had a very hard upbringing, at least in the beginning.
We never saw them playing, never saw them behaving like children. The house had been turned into something that looked like a jail cell.
His parents had never married and were in and out of jail for their entire relationship. In 1995, Oliver's father requested emergency custody of him due to his mom's severe alcohol issues. She was a very aggressive person and was even more aggressive when she was drinking. When drunk, it was hard for her to control her anger issues. Both his mother and father had been arrested for domestic violence multiple times. Reports show that during one of their fights, his mother had punched and bit his father. On another occasion, his father was charged with resisting and obstructing an officer that was attempting to intervene on a domestic violence altercation. After his mother and father split up, his father spent time in and out of prison for other assaultive crimes. He was sent to prison for beating and kidnapping a woman. In 1997, he was charged with pushing a woman and threatening to kill her. He did prison time again for holding one of his wife's heads under running water and smashing her head against the wall, leaving a hole there. In 2002, he was sent back to prison for verbally and physically attacking a woman for 9 hours in the presence of 3 children. It is unknown whether Oliver was one of the children that witnessed the attack. His father was charged with attempted murder and felonious assault. Many of the people that grew up with Oliver knew him as a nice kid who was easy to talk to. While Oliver's parents were very violent, it didn't appear that Oliver himself was a violent child. He wasn't terrorizing animals or bullying other children like some other shooters we have covered on this podcast. Some reports say that students bullied Oliver, while others said this simply wasn't true.
He wasn't always like that. I remember middle school, he had a lot of friends. Since freshman year, I would go into the cafeteria. He'd be sitting there, by himself and everything. And, I feel like I failed as a friend because I should have, at least gone up to him and said, how was your day? How are you doing and everything?
He had many friends, and though he may have been quiet and kept to himself, he didn't create any trouble for anyone. Neighbors from the area Oliver grew up in said that he was a normal kid who enjoyed playing in the snow with his sister, riding his bike, and swimming in his grandparents' pool.
He was a good student in school, and he just turned goth and his grades started dropping.
Oliver had posted several threats on his Facebook page that were overlooked by others and were never reported. Listen as Rudy from the True Crime Lab podcast reads a small portion of one of the posts Oliver had posted on his Facebook page on December 30th, 2011. He was better than the rest, all those ones he detests, within their castles so vain, selfish and conceited. They couldn't care less about the peasants they mistreated. They were in their own world. It was a joyous one, too. Now, feel death, not just mocking you, not just stalking you, but inside of you. Wriggle and writhe. Feel smaller beneath my night. Die, all of you. While Oliver tended to stay out of trouble while growing up, his brother would go in and out of the criminal justice system. He had been arrested for various charges throughout his adult life, including disorderly conduct, theft, abuse of prescription medications, and heroin use. His brother had even overdosed on heroin and other medications on many occasions. It didn't take long for the prosecutor's office to decide to charge Oliver as an adult instead of a juvenile. On February 8th, 2013, a competency evaluation was ordered by the court to see if Oliver was competent to stand trial. On February 26, 2013, he was found competent. Later that same day, a written guilty plea was filed with the court. Oliver was pleading guilty to all charges. Since he was pleading guilty to all the charges, and saving the town and victims the hardship of a trial, the death penalty was taken off the table. During the pendency of his court case, Oliver had actually had 2 competency evaluations. During the first exam, he told the examiner that he had heard voices, having anxiety, and was scared of losing his mind. He also told the examiner that when he was younger, he had been molested. During the second exam, he told the doctor that he had lied about everything during the first exam. He had never heard voices, and that he was trying to appear schizophrenic. He thought it wouldn't hurt to try and come across as schizophrenic. Oliver also admitted that he had lied about being sexually molested. Oliver's sentencing was set for March 19th, 2013. When he came into the courtroom, he looked like a normal teenager, wearing a blue button-up and collared shirt. Court video shows Oliver speaking with his attorney, and while doing so, he is unbuttoning his shirt to reveal a white t-shirt with the word killer handwritten with black marker on the front, much like the shirt he had worn on the day of the shooting. During the sentencing, while the victims' families were making their victim impact statements, Oliver continuously smirked and smiled as the families spoke about their grief and sadness. It certainly wasn't a time to be laughing. When it came time for Oliver to make a statement, his defense attorney tried to insist he not do so. If he were to make a statement and admit guilt, his statement could be used if he had decided to appeal the case in a court of appeals. Oliver didn't take his attorney's advice and decided to speak. He didn't stand up, however. He stayed seated in his chair, turned to the victims' families, held up his middle finger and said, "This hand that pulled the trigger that killed your son now masturbates to the memory. Fuck you all. It goes without saying that Oliver had no remorse for the crimes he had committed.
Seeing pull the trigger that killed your sons, now masturbates to memory. Love you.
Oliver's behavior didn't anything but improve when he went to prison. He was housed at the Allen Correctional Institution and was written up for many infractions that he had done while in prison. He was written up for tattooing himself, refusing to do schoolwork in his education classes, urinating on a building wall, and going out of bounds. He took it one step further, and on September 11, 2014, Oliver and 2 other men had successfully escaped the prison walls. The prison that he was housed in was a minimum and medium secure facility. The men had been outside during their recreation time when they scaled the fence and escaped. Upon hearing that Oliver had escaped, the Chardon High School closed their classes for the day, as to not cause any panic in the school. About 5 hours later, Oliver was captured by state troopers, hiding only about 100 yards from the prison.
Just spoke with one of the corrections officers. He advised that the 2 that we're trying to track down are both doing life. They've got nothing to lose here, so be alert.
Which inmate? I believe it's the young one. He's in custody.
He had a pitchfork with him when he was captured, but police didn't know where he got this pitchfork, and it had never been used as a weapon by Oliver. The 2 other men were also apprehended shortly after they had escaped. After they were recaptured, all 3 men were transferred to a maximum secure facility. The day after the escape, extra razor wire was added to the fencing area.
Obviously, I'm not happy that it's happened. I mean, no warden in my position would like something like this to happen. But the facts are, I'm happy to announce that we have Mr. back in our custody. He did scale our perimeter fence, and again, this is an ongoing investigation.
Sometime later, it had gotten out that the guards had actually had a chance to stop the escape from happening. A map was found in a cell the day before the escape, but nothing was ever done about it to further secure the prison. If the guards had taken the map seriously, perhaps a lot of panic could have been spared. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Active Shooter, the podcast. Remember, if you see something, say something. There's no telling how many lives you may be saving. A huge shout out to Ryan from the True Crime Lab podcast for reading one of the shooter's Facebook posts. You can find True Crime Lab on your favorite podcast player. Make sure to check us out on social media. We have a discussion group on Facebook. Just search for Active Shooter, the podcast discussion group. You can also find us on Instagram at Active the Podcast and Twitter at Podcast Active. For just $1 a month, you can get access to ad-free episodes, early release episodes, and a shout-out on the show. Just go to www.patreon.com/active the podcast. Thank you, and be safe.